we have enough people?
We do.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, it's 7 o'clock. Let's call this meeting to order. Do the roll call.
Okay, Chair Marie Hotta,
Here.
Maggie Burns,
Here.
Scott Gilbert,
Here.
Edie Hughes. She's muted. She's joining us virtually. And, all right, Dina Phelps.
Here.
Thank you. Amy Wilson.
Here.
We have City Council Member Chelsea Noonenkamp. Excused, we have Vice Chair Andy Sakaris, Bryn Dunning, and Inglewood School Liaison Dwayne Tucker. Staff, we have Director Christina Underhill, Library and Cultural Arts Manager Bethany Lafferty, and Patron Experience Librarian Carrie Watson. All right, thank you. And Maggie, did you second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All in favor?
Sorry, aye.
Okay.
Opposed? Right, that passes. Are we doing the public comment now, or should we save it for later?
So I think we're just acknowledging the public comment, and then we'll kind of address it a little bit during the other presentation, because some of the items brought up in this, I kind of will address in that.
All right.
And then if, you know, at the end of that, if there are specific questions about the public comment, we can address those specifically as well.
All right,
What part of that?
in the new business,
Okay.
yes. All right, and there's no other public comments, so we can move on to the reports. Statistical reports.
So items of note. Oh,
I would say, do you guys want me to share this on the screen or do you prefer just seeing the room? Do you have copies yourself to look at?
I mean, I have it on another monitor. I don't know what everyone else has.
Yeah, I'm good to leave it like this on the room.
Okay, all right. That helps to see everybody.
okay. So some items of note in the statistical report. Days of service, there was only 30 for October, because we did have one closed day for staff development. Physical visitors, as we've been doing this data analysis of the door count, we really became apparent that the physical visitors is reported as an in and out. So it's not 11,000 people, it's 11,000 in and out. So it's more like it's 5.5, maybe 500 results through the month. So I just wanted to clarify that. I don't think that we're going to make any adjustments to that for this calendar year, but I think that starting in January with a fresh year, I'll do it as a cut it in half from the reporting system so that it's a true reflection of people, not an in and out. So I just wanted to clarify that, because Carrie and I, as we were looking through the data over the last couple of months, we realized this is like twice as much as.
Do you think that that was also the case previously and that?
Well, that's why I'm saying for this whole
Yeah,
year,
yeah, yeah.
I think that they were always using it, because based on the instructions
Yeah.
for compiling the statistical report,
Yeah.
it says to use the total amount for the month, and that is that in and out. door
So-
count.
By that, our visitors are still up, is what I'm saying.
Correct.
Oh,
Yes,
you mean from the year to date for the year
before, yeah.
before?
correct.
Possibly, because also, Christina, do you remember the exact time that the door counter went in? I don't think we're.
October of 2021.
Yeah,
Oh,
so the data for last year
Yeah,
to
that's what
date
it
is
was.
not a
Yeah.
correct year.
It's just, I'm mostly wondering, like, are we seeing a significant drop? Probably.
And so I'll look at how I can make an edit in the spreadsheet for the next year so that the year-to-dates, or I'm sorry, that the last year-to-date, meaning for 2022, is a proper reflection and will correlate properly with what we're gonna put in. Does that make sense? Oh, well, sometimes it's somebody like,
You do.
a staff member might come through an entrance but go through the back.
Somehow we're
So
using
that's how
audio.
that happens, is that, because sometimes staff go in and out the main doors of the library. But then they might go through the other way. So, and same thing with this, also will pick up any of the cleaning crew that come through after hours. And that's the other thing too, as I've done analysis, the total gives us a 24-hour total. So that's also telling you, that's picking up the numbers for any before hours activity from staff, from cleaning crews, other, facilities, people who might be in and out. So
It's on the side was going.
right, so it's a little bit kind of overstated in that sense. But I think we can make adjustments to make it more accurate going forward, and then have the two, like 2022 data with 2023 compared on a more apples to apples. So I just wanted to kind of mention that we sort of discovered that. And I believe, as we discussed it a couple meetings ago, we're not going to go through each item by item, so I'm just kind of hitting a few highlights. For questions answered, I just like to give a breakdown that it was 2,894 adults and then 93 for youth. We do think that we have a lot of adults asking questions for their children and don't really have a way to always break that down, because they may ask those questions at reference or at the circulation desk. So they don't get truly marked as like a youth inquiry. So I'm still trying to think of some ways to kind of account for that more accurately. Volunteer hours, we had 21 adult volunteer hours and 2014 volunteer hours. In October, the teams volunteered at the Jamboree, so that's what they were here for. I totally forget how many she said there were. There must have been 6. I think it was 4 hours, 16 is 4 hours. And then for the incident reports, it actually is a little bit, the total number is correct. But it was really 6 ejections and 4 other, which I know adds up to 13 total. But we had 1 incident that resulted in 2 ejections. So that's why that's a little off. Yes, yeah, it was like 1 altercation where both people were ejected. At the computers, yeah, this one patron addressed another patron for being noisy, and the reaction was not good, and the way that they approached the person was not good either, so then it kind of erupted into a screaming match, and they were both out. So, and then the other, we had a couple that had not been completed at the time that I finished this, because sometimes the incident reports do get completed a couple of days after the incidents occur.
What parent did excluded this month?
One exclusion was for viewing pornography and then shouting and cursing at staff for enforcing the rules of not watching pornography. So the second was a argument between 2 patrons over a stolen laptop. And when staff were trying to escort or get the 2 people to leave, one of the parties pulled a knife. So then police were involved, and the person who pulled out the weapon ultimately was arrested. And a order of protection has been placed against that person for the whole library. So they are not allowed in the library for 2 years. So even though we've done an exclusion of our own, which really only is for 90 days, the order of protection supersedes that. So we've worked with the Arapahoe County DA as well as our city attorney. We still did our part that we would do normally. But that was the plan. But even when that expires, that person will not. Definitely had some repercussions for emotional toll, being anxious and nervous about being on the floor, things like that.
What was interesting is the two staff members were dealing with this incident and there was a patron asking for help on the computer to one of the staff members. So here she is dealing with this and then somebody's saying, can you help me? You know, find something online. So that's what they unfortunately have to deal with all the time is they get elevated in a situation and then they're having to turn around and do customer service after being scared out of their minds of dealing with somebody that was not. So.
Are you seeing fewer incidents in the walls of the library, you think, or is it hard to say?
It just kind of depends, honestly, because I was looking to, like in September, we had 29 total incidents reported. Or 21, I'm sorry, 21, and then the month before that, only 11. I think it just kind of depends. And there's really no way to predict what's gonna happen. And I think that's also part of the issue for staff is I know I can speak for myself. A couple Saturdays ago, we had very limited staff on the floor. There's lots of people in here, which was unusual for a Saturday. It was the most we've had in a while. And the air was just charged. And I was like, we are primed for something to pop off in a minute here. And I was really, really nervous. And it made it hard for me because I'm like, I am super tense and anxious right now. And I'm like hyper vigilant for something to happen, which is really stressful and exhausting for an individual. Ultimately, I did call the exterior security patrol from Allied and just was like, I just need somebody to walk through here. Like, there's nothing happening yet, but I just need to walk through. It'd be really helpful. I feel like it might diffuse some of the tension that all of us were feeling. And so he was like, yeah, I'm happy to come down there. I'll be there in a minute because I think he was driving around. And so he just got here within a few minutes, walked around, talked to some of the staff. And he came back a couple different times that day. And I think Carrie was the person in charge the next day. And I had alerted her, if you feel at any time that you just need that security presence, call them and they will come. And we have discussed having the formal post orders updated to include that on the weekends. And I Saturdays. Yeah, the Saturdays and Sundays especially because we don't have an in-house library security at this moment. But I almost feel like even when we do, it wouldn't be a bad thing to have continue happening.
Well, and Sunday I had to call him because somebody was visibly using drugs in the lobby. So I just had to get him to escort. Just because he was doing it on the bench, like by the tree. So it is nice that they respond really quickly
Yeah.
to phone calls. Really quick.
So that's helpful for sure.
I do have that resource then, like.
Yeah, and it's been, I think, I know that they have to go through a process to formalize it in their post orders, but even in the interim, the guards are being really helpful. We've gotten to know them by name and,
Is there anything that like support that or like making that post order happening?
no, I mean,
Okay.
Christina has carried that out with,
Okay.
the head of facilities, who's like the main contact for the contract. So that's working out. It's just the process on their end, but
Okay.
we know that it will be carried out.
Yeah, Allied's been amazing. One of Dwight, who's our daytime, he's here Monday through Friday. He walked in, I was standing there, he goes, you have to protect this place. These people are needles. I'm like, I am so glad you see it. Because we believe that, you know, and we're all here to do good things for these people and help them, and they don't always see it that way. So the guards have been wonderful, and we hope they stay.
Are you aware of any discussion at the city level about trying to do something about the camp where we have to go? In the building?
That's a hard question to answer because it is a public facility. I mean, it's seen, you know, active drug use. It's hard when somebody's just sitting on the bench and you know they're experiencing homelessness, they've got all their stuff with them, but they're not causing any problems. Especially in these colder temperatures and I.
The library will close in 15 minutes. Please bring your items to circulation for checkout. The public computers will shut down 5 minutes before closing time. Please save or print documents in the next 10 minutes. Thank you.
It's the challenge the library has too, though. It's a public facility. We can't turn people away. We can if they're not following policy and they're breaking rules and all that, but I know all the staff here really do care about the patrons and want to help everybody out, and just coming in today, walking around, people, you could tell they were cold from being outside and they just wanted a warm place to sit. So trying to find that balance is gonna always be the challenge.
Yeah, I mean, I was down the other day and some guy was lying under the bench outside screaming unintelligibly. And it's just like, I don't know, again, young kids. And it's-
Ta-da. Thanks. You got it. Thanks.
Tom, manager and I were having a conversation about this recently, and it was clarified for me that there's no library security on the weekends. And so,
Because there's an opening.
Right, and the posting is remaining open until the position will be filled. Proving a little bit harder than I would like. We'll have 2 interviews this week.
I thought, well, they.
No, it's okay.
That
that is true. We were just discussing the challenge of staff experiencing, and I was curious, are there higher attendance on those days, and what's the experience, and how we're handling that?
I mean, it depends. Like I said, two Saturdays ago, it was the most people I'd seen in here on a Saturday in a long while. And it wasn't particularly bad weather out. I don't know what it was, but there was just so many people in here. And there was myself, 2 associates, and 1 children's associate. There was 4 of us on the floor. And it was really challenging because we need to give ourselves a break from the floor. We need to take a lunch. And it was a really stressful day. It was probably the most stressful day I've had on the floor without an incident. Sometimes even when an incident happens, it snaps the tension, and then everything kind of diffuses and you push it away or you resolve it, you move on. But when I just felt like I was on the edge of a cliff waiting for something to happen, it was really uncomfortable.
Well, and because even though the supervisor changes from Saturday to Sunday, the associates are nearly the same ones that work the whole weekend shift. So when I came in on Sunday, most of the staff were still on edge because it was the same people from the day before. And I mean, one of the staff members even said, I think I might take a personal day later in the week, just because this has been a really long weekend. Just because when it's only 4 of you and you don't have that interior security, it doesn't.
And it's really that anticipation of if something happens, how do I manage the people that are the other people in the library? How do I keep the staff safe? And when we just have so few staff, and that's, definitely one of the points I'm going to speak to in a little while, about the staffing concerns that I have is just not merely staffing the library minimally, but having adequate staff so we all feel safe so that we can back each other up and take care of things if something does escalate. Yeah.
Long and, okay. All right, let's go on to the action plan.
So there are a few October updates in the action plan. The first one is under this general section regarding the microsite. We have had to delay this project until next year, just because we've had some conflicting schedules with trying to plan meetings. And the library staff, the leadership team, we just have not had the time to discuss the content we would like to put forth. So that has been put on hold. And then implement a study of current library hours and services. So an analysis of library visits, questions asked, and program attendance is complete for the timeframe of May 22nd, which is when we started being open on Sundays. That was, so I think it had been closed on Sundays for all the way up to January at the beginning of the year. So it started on May 22nd through October 31st, which technically the data I analyzed went through November 5th to make it a full week because I needed a full week's worth of data. So technically it goes to November 5th. And then staffing levels have been analyzed alongside of this data for a whole picture of our operations capacity. And that's something else I'll be presenting more fully in a minute. Other improvements to the library, modifications to the reference desk are completed. So there are now 2 workstations at the reference desk for library associates to sit at. And then this allows for a permanent workstation for the security staff to be at so that they can be on the floor all of their staff time, the exception of breaks and stuff like that. Oh, this was about the access to local history materials. During the month of October, we were able to schedule one of our library associates 1 full day a week to work in the archive. She does have her Master's of Library and Information Science specializing in archival work. So she's been trying to work on it a little bit at a time. And by giving a full day, she's really able to accomplish a great deal of things. It's by no means close to being complete because there's a lot of stuff in there. But she was able to do some good inventory and organization and then create some finding tools for any local researchers to use. That project is again on hold due to staffing needs, so we'll hopefully be able to get some more time dedicated on a weekly basis. Before we were doing 1 day a month, and then we were able to manage 1 day a week. So hopefully we'll see if we can get back to that or not. Outreach services, Corinne Barnett, our adult services librarian, did attend the Homeless Connect event at Cushing Park on October 26th. We didn't set up a table so much because what we really wanted to do was have her attend and make connections with a lot of the groups there, maintain connections that she's already established and just like reconnect with people. So she did meet a few new people and was able to kind of catch up with folks that she'd already been working with. Outreach to local schools, children and teen librarian Kimberly Powers, she and her team attended the Englewood High School Future Fair. And they were able to provide some information about how the preference courses that the library offers, as well as register people for new library accounts. Then the last thing for children's was they had several big events. Kimberly was at the trunk or treat. She passed out 560 Google Eyes and candy. An estimated an equal number of adults were there with their kids. Jamboree had 125 attendees. And then I just wanted to highlight a passive program that they started doing. I want to say maybe in September was the first month. But it's little, yeah. So there's 2 little gnomes hidden in the children's area, and the kids just have to find it and then report it to a staff member, and they just get to pick a little prize. And so in October, they handed out 29 prizes. It's starting to pick up a little bit. So that is the action plan. Okay.
Anyone have questions there? So making note that we have spent our budget for the year. And let's move on to their old business. Okay. And let's move on to the new business. Library hours and services.
And then there was a last minute addition that Debbie did email out, but you all didn't have to print it, but if you did, that's great, but I do have to have these available. Chelsea. Here, you need one?
Yeah.
You have one? Here.
I have one.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. So this kind of summary sheet was created by Celine Gardner, technical services librarian, to really try to synthesize what I'm saying, so you don't have to feel like you need to take copious notes on a lot of the facts and figures I'm going to talk about, so that, and it should be kind of in order of the way I'm going to talk about it. So the other thing I kind of tapped out in or put in advance in the packet was the kind of high or like big picture thing for Sundays, regarding the number of people that we have coming on Sundays. And the door count data shows that we have 6% of our weekly visitors come on Sunday. And so that means the balance of that 94.
The library will close in 5 minutes. Please finish your work and head toward the exit. Thanks for visiting.
So the remaining 94% comes Monday through Saturday. We're currently open on Sundays from 12 to 5, which I do recognize is half the service hours of our Monday through Thursday service days and 2.5 hours less than our Friday service days. However, when I do analyze that 12 to 5 segment across the week, it's still fairly consistent with Sundays accounting for 10.38% of weekly library visits between 12 and 5. So it's still a smaller percentage of the overall total of visitors. And then you have to keep in mind that there's still more people before 12 and after 5 on these other days, with the exception of Fridays and Saturdays. It's just a couple hours before 12 o'clock that we have. So it's really still the lowest level, visitor day. There's a couple outlier days where we had a lot of people. Sometimes it's if there was something going on upstairs, or the last day of summer reading, which was August 14th. There was a lot of people in here because that's the last day to come get prizes. So there were sometimes things that caused people to come in for those specific reasons. But that's why I kind of did it as an across the board average, because generally we don't have that many people really coming in on Sundays. We don't offer any programming on Sundays. We don't have any other additional services available.
It's super rough, man, based on last month's work. Would it be about right to say a Sunday we typically each about 85 or 86
Yep.
patrons?
The whole thing.
Yeah.
Right, no,
Not
I-
at one time.
Yeah, the whole day, yeah. And sometimes I feel like the lowest it maybe was like in the low 70s. And I think the most we ever had was like maybe 115. But yeah, and then like Monday through Thursday, generally, even in that just 5-hour time span, it's about 150. Sometimes a little bit less. And then we also had closures. There was a few days, like I didn't, note to myself that there are weeks when there's closures. So the Sunday percentage is going to seem higher of the weekly total because we might have been closed on a Monday or Friday or whatever. So there are some fluctuations statistically because of those changes. But like I said, it brings in definitely the fewest number of people. Even if we look at that 5-hour time frame, there's no programs, and then maintaining staff on Sundays really creates a hardship for staffing the rest of the week. And it's the same thing for Saturday too, is that we move people from the weekday shifts to the weekend, and we're already kind of short even when we're fully staffed. So that was the other bottom part of this little fact sheet, was showing that, when we have a full staff of 11 library associates, that's 220 staffing hours, but we need 262 to be considered fully covered based on the framework we want to have for staff and service desks fully.
How would we say fully staffed is less than the hours here open?
We've been trying to figure that out. And Christina and I have been trying to think back and talk to the other staff about what happened in changes in staffing. Did we lose some positions somehow to reorganization?
Prior to 2020.
Yeah, was there something that happened in the pandemic? But we don't think that there's no.
We
nothing
didn't
dropped
cut
then.
FTEs during the pandemic and the height of it, especially 2020, 2021, no staff loss. So it had to have happened prior to 2020. So yeah, we've been going through trying to figure out, were these always the staffing levels, or have the staffing levels somehow decreased over time, or positions absorbed somewhere else? I know mail services were added.
Memories that around 2018 or 2019, a decline in staff.
And there were some changes with, Dorothy Hargrove was the
Right,
library manager. and,
Right,
Yeah,
it's just,
they're not
I
sure,
don't
so.
remember exactly, I don't want to
Yeah.
get it wrong, but I do remember there was a reduction. And then there was also the change to part-time non-benefited.
Yes, that would have been about 2018. That would have occurred.
Yeah, so that part, yeah, we don't really know why that happened. And that's sort of the thing that really since I've started in this position, as I'm trying to understand how the staff works and, what we need, how everything just kind of functions on a day-to-day basis, that I really started thinking, I don't think there's enough people here. So I really have been kind of thinking about this from the beginning and really trying to understand how do we feel like we have enough space to do the work that we need to do. And that's really where it kind of came up, like, we just don't even have enough people. We sit down and think about the number of hours that we are open and how much staff we need for that. And that's kind of what our service model for staffing is: 4 library associates working a day shift, Monday through Thursday, which is 7.5 hours, 9 to 5. And then we do 3 library associates working 2 to 7:30 for 5 hours. And I'm calculating in their lunch.
The library is now closed. We will reopen tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Thank you.
So those Monday through Thursday days, having 7 associates scheduled a day requires 45 hours of like associate time. And then Fridays and Saturdays, we like to have 4 associates doing a 7.5 hour shift, and then it's a 5.5 hour shift on Sundays, again with 4 associates. The library supervisors, so that's the supervisor librarians as well as myself, each work a closing night. And so we each do, that's why there's not 4 at night, because the supervisor does the closing shift on the desk. So there technically is still 4 people, and I do want to emphasize that none of this information includes the security, the lead security specialist or the part-time security associate, because they are intended to be the security person, not working our service desk. So that was my main goal about the extra workstation and reference, was to create a permanent space for security on the floor at times. So they're not part of this calculation, because they are a separate kind of staffing need apart from the service desk. So all that together is 262 hours of library associate time. And we currently have 220 hours. We're short 3 associates right now. They're conducting interviews this week. Carrie and Corinne are doing that. And so we'll get to that 220 hours. Staff can work extra hours if they're available, but that's not a guarantee. I can't make people do that. It depends on their schedules. We have lots of people who are students, people who have other jobs. We have some of our part-timers who utilize their healthcare through Medicaid, and they have to maintain a certain income level to stay eligible. And if they exceed that, they could lose their health insurance. So it's a real serious concern for some of our part-timers. Yeah, so that's another reason why we can't always say, oh, the extra shifts will get picked up by our existing staff, because they may not be able to do that. And so currently the lead security associate, just to talk about that a little bit, is currently working Monday through Friday, 8-hour shifts. So we don't have security until 11 a.m. And then there's no security on Saturday and Sunday because we have that position. The difference between the amount of staff and the total hours we need to, as well, that 42-hour gap, in theory, that's something that gets filled in by the library supervisors and myself. Right now, because we are short 3 associates, that bumps up to 102 hours that we're short, that we all have to cover. So that's a lot of time every week right now. It's causing a lot of hardship on the weekend. We do have a very immediate need for Sundays to possibly be closed. At the very least this coming Sunday, because we only have 2 staff people scheduled and we cannot safely operate the library with 2. So that's like an imminent thing that we have to close on the 20th. We also have to start our new hires. We do have limited time at the end of the year to start them, with 1 possible start date, but at the end of the year. If we can't make that work, we will continue to be 102 hours short until we get in new hires in January. And we have at least a good month before they're fully trained and really ready to go. So that's just
Christmas,
HR.
holidays, they don't
Yeah.
want somebody starting. We can only start every 2 weeks.
There's certain hire dates that coincide with, I guess, the
It's
beginning of
starting-
accounting
starting the
periods.
period. It's the way the system works. We've tried to, in very emergency cases, they've been able to do some things with that, but unfortunately, that's the direction we're going, and so that's the challenge is there's. I think
So if they can't start December 5th,
Yep.
then it has to be January 3rd.
Yeah, and I think it's because we have Monday holidays later in
Correct.
December, so that we just, the last one that's available is December 5th. And since we're doing the interviews right now, like, it'll be cutting it close to get people starting that date. So we are in an immediate need for, evening out our staffing a little bit better, because Saturdays and Sundays for the next 4 weeks, like until the Christmas holiday, we generally have only 3 associates, or two associates and me on Saturday. And then usually 2 associates and another supervisor on Sunday. And the other librarian supervisors are backing each other up on Sundays, and so 2 of them are coming, even though that's an extra day for 2 people, which ultimately means too that I'm using 2 supervisors during the week, because they really should be taking a day off when they're working a 6th day. So that's another issue too. So that's really one of the real hardships, and one of the things I wanted to just give you a visual for this, if I can, I want to just share something to show you what the schedule looks like, kind of spread out, so you can kind of see visually what we're really dealing with, because I think sometimes it helps to see that. Oh, it's just because I have a lot of windows.
Teams. Share.
So this is just what how our schedule can look Monday through, or this is Monday through Sunday right now. And anyway, all right, I thought
So one of the items we need to decide tonight is about Sunday, especially this upcoming Sunday. And that's after asking all the staff to pick up shifts, so it's like that.
Yeah, there's already been all calls.
Yeah, so, and then that's also proceeding through at least the end of December. Granted, we've got the holiday coming up too.
Can I
but-
clarify what the holiday close dates are? Is it Christmas Eve? Christmas, or is it?
Well, in the city
Right.
closes on Fridays and
Okay.
Mondays is the official holidays.
Right.
But Christmas and Christmas Eve are actually Saturday and Sunday. So we're actually closed Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then the following weekend the same
Right.
because of,
Okay.
New Year's.
Just for Thanksgiving, is it just Thanksgiving?
Just
Or
Thursday and Friday.
Thursday and Friday? Okay.
oh, this,
It'll be the 20th through the 11th will be the Sunday closures.
Okay.
Sundays.
so the other thing too to point out is that because we have 2 people rotating, we have 4 different weeks A, B, C, and D. So 2 people rotate each week, leaving 2 full 7.5-hour shifts empty. So you can see here the ones highlighted in yellow, those are the shifts that will be empty that week, so that we can cover a Saturday shift here for Associate 5, a Sunday for Associate 5. And then Associate C, that is vacant. This is not even a real person. Associate C is not a hired person. We don't even have this right now. So for example, when I'm on week A, I have Associate 3 and 5, because Associate 3 always works Saturday. So I have 2 associates and myself.
Well, and as you can see on Mondays, even right now, the worst situation we're in, we only have 1 person who comes in on Monday mornings because associate A, B, and C are not hired yet. So it's always full-time staff and supervisors who are covering the desk from 9 until 2.
So
I-
after the safety discussion, I see no reason why we are open on Sundays right now. Like, because there's no
Something that would happen on Sunday is Associate 6, who works every Sunday, would be moved to Saturday. So that gives me another associate, then I can have
three
3.
real person.
But
Yes,
myself,
that's
yeah.
a real
The number, I'm sorry, like, yeah, let me clarify. The
Clarify.
number of positions are actual employees.
Yeah.
The lettered ones are
Okay.
not hired yet. And then, the library supervisors who currently rotate on Sunday would rotate on Saturday, so I would be there with another supervisor for the whole day. So we would have 2 supervisors, 3 associates. And then 3 out of 4 weekends, we'd also have a children's associate.
Yes, if immediately, please close on Sunday.
Well, I agree strongly.
Really?
Yeah, really strongly. Is there, can the hours difference be made up by opening later on weekdays?
Can you explain why it's not?
Yeah.
Oh, because, well, there's people who work for them. There's people who go to school. There's people who need a place to go with their kids on weekends. I mean,
Those people are not coming here on Sunday.
you know,
They might,
so-
no, they are not. They might come here on Saturday, and we would be open for a 7.5-hour day on
Yeah.
Saturday.
But you're not seeing family on Sundays?
And barely very many on Saturdays. Families mostly come here Monday through Friday.
In the evening or something?
During the morning hours, because there's story time every single day, there are no youth programs on Saturday or Sunday ever in the entire year, with the exception of the Jamboree.
Right.
That is the only time there's a youth program on the weekend. There are no other programs on Saturday and Sunday in the library for children and families.
And Kimberly has said she's tried to host a Saturday story time in the past and it gets no traction. That families don't attend story time.
And my response to your concern about people who are working or have families is we would remain open until the evening hours. We would have Saturday open. The Sundays just do not bring in enough traffic. We offer nothing but opening the doors and allowing people to check out materials or use the computers. We have no other services available. The tech lab is generally not open on Saturday and Sunday right now because we cannot provide the staff to help people in the tech lab, because that takes you away from the floor. Now you're not available for any other questions because the reference desk is empty. So we don't have that service available on the weekend. And that's really our current situation is so dire because we are short those 3 positions. But additionally, even when they are filled, we still have a minimum amount of staff available for Saturday and Sunday. I am the only supervisor on Saturday. I work the service desk the entire day. 1/5 of my work week is spent being a library associate. I don't have a problem with that. I get paid a lot of money. It's insulting to the library associates that I have to work next to who get paid half as much. Because I'm doing the same job as them. The other problem for me with that is that I can't do my other duties. I can't help this library progress and grow and offer more than it does. Because we do not have the time and space to do that in this operations schedule.
And then you end up also, like, people do need time. People do need.
But yeah, because all of
this,
this schedule does also assume nobody's taking any time off, but people will get sick, their family members will get sick. They will want to take vacations. And the more hours the supervisors have to cover, the less time we have to do our other work. And that's a big problem. And the same thing for the associates. The more desk shifts they have to work every time they're scheduled, the less opportunity that they have to do anything that contributes to the overall services and programs for the library, because all they're doing is being on the desk. They can't work on any other projects. They cannot receive any training. Yeah, I mean, we take advantage of the quiet times, and one person from circulation will go shut when it's quiet. And that's how we can get it done.
Well, and even things like, putting new displays up each month. The gal that was handling that as her like additional project has left. Because she could get more hours at another library. And no one has been able to fill that position or take over those responsibilities because there's no time off the service desk even to complete the things that would need to be done to change the displays. So I mean, as it stands, what's displayed on November can't even be replaced or changed for December because there's no time or people to
And
even
a similar
rotate.
situation happened in children's recently. One of the children's associates was out due to an injury. She was getting prepared to make some changes to the displays. That had to wait until she could come back. Because there was nobody else that had the time to pick up the work in her place. So that part that's a real serious concern for me that that myself and the librarians and one of the bigger things too is in technical services, how incredibly backed up they are right now. This is not a criticism of the work they're doing. It's the fact that our full-time librarian, supervisor in technical services spends a ton of time out on the floor helping out. They have so many, and she has 2 brand new people that she's trying to work with and train, but she doesn't have a lot of time to spend with them. They have like 7 or 8 unopened boxes of materials that have not been processed yet. And we want this stuff to get out for the public to utilize. But we're so far behind on that. This month alone in November, we have canceled the first computer class of the month because I did not have enough staff. We're having to cancel this Saturday's program computer class too because we don't have enough staff for a staff person to be in the tech lab conducting a class with 2 people on the floor. Just not safe. That for the weekend part, that's the biggest thing is safety. And that was another part I wanted to talk about to just expand on the number of incidents we had in October. There was 12 that we put into our patron incident tracking system. So those are what I report in the statistical report. 1 verbal warning, 6 ejections, 2 exclusions, 4 other issues that came up. Generally speaking, the incident reports take anywhere from approximately 30 to 90 minutes to complete the data entry for. Generally, they are done by our lead security specialist or one of the librarian supervisors or myself. So that is anywhere from 6 to 18 hours, and that's like a low estimate per month we spend on incident reports. And that's why I was making a point earlier. Sometimes the reports don't get in for a few days. The incident where the gentleman pulled a knife on staff, it probably took a week for that one to go in, understandably, because it was very devastating to the staff that had to deal with that. And to Christina's point, we had a patron trying to say, hey, can you help me with the computers? She's in the middle of like 2 people fighting in the library.
Yeah.
How are we supposed to provide service? If I had another person at reference, they could have handled it. They could have answered the patron questions. We just don't have enough people.
And it was a supervisor having to sit at the desk.
Right.
When that.
Is losing something.
I will get there. But I want, in addition to our formal incident tracking, we also in our new kind of patron interaction tracking software we're using, we are also recording just issues and concerns that aren't quite that level yet. So for October, we had 22 different issues or concerns that were recorded in DART. Which was, and we have the ability to kind of indicate how much time each of those took. So approximately 2 hours and 40 minutes were spent on these issues through the month of October. 2 of the incidents reported in DART turned into an ejection, 2 ejections that we put into the formal system. And those are things that are spent by, like recorded by library associates and supervisors alike. So that's a few additional hours every month that we're, recording these things. So this is stuff we can look at and see. And I will also mention there was, oh yeah, the 2 instances turned into patrons being ejected. But the other thing I was reading these through, there ended up being just kind of a formal incident recorded right at the end of the month about this gentleman who really was just kind of going on and on, It's kind of like paranoid ideas about EPD, the city of Englewood, that this building is hazardous and we shouldn't even be in it. I mean, that guy talked to me for like 10 minutes on one day. And I was like, and then I saw that he had talked to these other people as well. And it's just like, when you start seeing these people who seem a little unstable, they're kind of talking a little, nutty, you have to keep an eye because that person could blow up at any moment. And we have seen that happen, where we have had a patron completely lose it, screaming, cursing, getting in people's faces. It's scary.
Last month, when I was waiting for the meeting, sometimes just walking around behind them. Like, I'm gonna go on.
I'd really love to hear the thoughts, comments, concerns of the board, just because I know everyone's time is limited. Great information. I know you and your team are in the really on the front line of the city's response to homelessness. And so we know you're dealing with a lot, but I'd love to hear from the board in terms of comments and other questions.
All of it. So the challenge is, I think Sundays is our biggest challenge going forward for now. The second challenge, and Sean and Tim Dodd have been great with talking with Beth and I of alternative options, offering more time, more hours during the week for our library associates. And unfortunately, many can't pick up those hours. And then, so the new staff that we're hoping to hire, we're offering them a lot more hours than our current associates are actually getting to try to close those gaps. But they may not be able to either. They may be students, they might have other jobs, 20 hours is all they want. And we cannot require them to work more. And so we're not sure yet as we're just doing hiring or the interviews this week. So, so let's talk just immediate need for Sundays. We are short-staffed, as Beth has explained. What are your thoughts? I know, Scott, you shared, keep Sundays open.
Well, I mean, but I'm just curious if opening later would do it. I mean, my concern is, I really am concerned about the library we've been relevant this everyday, and I think people assume, well, I wonder if part of the reason that Sunday down is because people got used to it being closed for 5 minutes and might not be aware of something. But my concern is, I think people expect libraries to be open on. Really? EMS is open on.
Oh, if I can just interrupt everybody, and I'm sorry for this, and I know, Sean, you want this conversation to go a certain way, but I'm gonna bring your attention to this document I just passed out.
Yeah.
If we would like to use Bemis as the example, Bemis is open 64 hours a week, covering 7 days. They have a population of roughly 45,000 people. They have 29 FTEs.
That's 15,
Full-time staff.
and we have 15. So they have twice the staff to cover those 64 hours. So based on
They
our
also have a
FTE,
budget of $2.6 million, twice what is allocated for the Englewood Public Library. I don't know how anybody expects the Englewood Public Library to provide services and programs at the same level of another library of comparable size that has twice the staff and twice the budget. Our resources do not match our operations. We cannot do things at the level that we're doing sustainably with the resources we have. We don't have the right balance. And what I'm trying to ask for and advocate for myself and for the staff of this library, and frankly, for the community of Englewood, is to create a framework of operations in which we can successfully operate and put out quality service, quality programs, and a safe place for people to work and visit. And that's what I'm asking for.
Right.
And that's what I'm recommending.
There's this immediate triage Sunday, we're understaffed.
Yeah,
Very
because we
real.
have definitely two situations going on here.
Yeah, so short-term triage and then a long-term structural question. And the short-term, I think is its own thing. The long-term, I'm curious, is there's like a budget piece here that I'm not sure historically why we're in this position, so it's very interesting to me. But the other piece of it is the staffing kind of structure and philosophy of the library. And I'm curious, are you evaluating the part-time model? And then also, what are we doing about retention? Are we spending meaningful time thinking about retaining employees? Like how-
Who's time to spend time thinking
Well,
about
we
it?
have HR department, but I'm wondering, this is also like, we kind of keep finding ourselves, like we finally get staff and then we drop again. And so
Yeah.
what role is this?
You just said something that I think I know exactly what happened, was we used to have 30-hour positions that were benefit. You mentioned that. Those went away. So staff could not, so federal state law, 30 hours plus you get benefits. Due to budget, you can't, now we have to stay under that amount. And so there you go. There we, I mean, 10 hours per staff member we lost. From a retention standpoint, they no longer get health insurance. They do get PTO, sick leave, things like that, but not the health insurance, which I think helps retain people. It was something that was discussed. We did a part-time focus group, you know, what will keep people to stay here? That was a big topic that came up. And so I have a feeling that's exactly what happened and why we are in the situation we're in today. And that happened, I believe, around 2018, early 2019, when that change was made, and we did lose quite a few staff. And we have had a lot of staff leave for full-time positions or positions where they could get health insurance. That is quite possible.
Or where they would be guaranteed room for growth into more hours, because as the current model stands, there's only 5 full-time staff.
Right.
And then the rest were dependent on part-time 20-hour staff. So there is no real room for growth unless a full-time staff member leaves. And you already have your MLS and you're kind of sitting there waiting in this part-time position, hoping that a full-time spot becomes available.
So, yeah.
I was thinking municipal resource allocation, either reduce services or you increase resources, like those are our options. And so I'm just curious, there's a recognition to reduce service. Is there also a recognition the other way, right?
I mean,
And how do we do that? I'm just curious.
I don't know how to get additional people, because what I really need is additional people to cover a 60-hour service week. We still are gonna be limited in the amount of programs we can provide based on our operating budget. So I don't really know how to increase that right now, other than to make plans for increasing the budget over the next few budget cycles. But that's gonna take a couple of years to do.
And we're potentially in a deficit moving into 2024 that we're gonna have to address. So I think in a short term / long term, because it's gonna be more than a month, is looking at the hours of operation here in the library. We open at 9:30, open at 10 instead. That cuts out a half an hour. And instead of closing at 7:30, we're closing at 7. We remain closed on Sundays, we'll say temporarily through 2023 while we plan for 2024 budget and figure this out over the next year and operate in a safe manner with enough staff. And again, well, as new staff come on board, we'll offer more hours to them and hopefully they can pick those up to cover some of this deficit and staff coverage that we have. So short term is let's close Sundays just through the end of December, or probably through until the January board meeting. We'll have another discussion in January. And if you guys want to decide this year, I mean, maybe December board meeting, you can think about this, process all this information. And in December, we decide 2023, what the hours look like for the weeks. Are we closed on Sundays? Do we reduce hours on Saturdays? And that would help out greatly. My biggest concern, and this is another piece going back to 2018, 19, even early 2020, when I started here, this library did not look like this. We didn't have the safety concerns. We had a few incidents here and there, but nothing like what we're seeing after, you know, post-pandemic. And it's unfortunate that we're in this position, but we are in this position. And so we really need to do something to change in a temporary sense, not long-term for the next 20 years, to get us in a safe place where our staff are not, you know, working 6 days, our full-time staff aren't working 6 days out of the week consistently, which I know is wearing on them. We see that day in and day out. The stress level is extremely high here and we have no idea what's going to walk through the door each day. Some days are great.
And that's the other thing, because like originally my plan for this meeting was to only be presenting a long-term plan for us to discuss. But in the last like month that we've had some people leaving, it created this imminent issue.
Yeah.
So like originally, I do want to be clear about that. Originally, this was just meant to be a discussion about long-term plans so that we could potentially start 2023 with a new framework for operations and utilizing the staff that we do have available and the, you know, the resources we have in a different way. But we do have this other issue that has come up in recent weeks that has to be addressed. Yeah, and that's because we lost some people, yeah. Because even some of we had 2 of our substitutes have left as well. So it's like, we just don't have anybody to work anymore. Like, we're just like trying to squeeze every ounce that we can out of people. And it's gonna take its toll, and I don't wanna lose any more staff.
Well, and
Because
this
we'll
kind of,
just repeat
yeah.
the same cycle again.
Well, and like you were saying, Chelsea, the other option is having more resources available. But it feels like that's not really on the table for 2023. And so it's kind of the idea of scaling back for a calendar year to kind of regroup, try out something different, be able to concentrate more fully in a reduced manner, and then make a big plan for change in the 2024 calendar. When there's time to kind of reflect.
Just on that resource question, because I think I've had a good conversations with Beth and Christina just about the number of hours that are budgeted. I did not, I guess I didn't really fully understand that we were doing comparisons with other libraries and how under resourced we were. I mean, the fact is, yes, we have an operating deficit, but we have a budget surplus in terms of, you know, leftover money at the end of each fiscal year that's put into the unassigned fund balance. The council, you know, can and has, for priorities that are important to the council and to the community, use that unassigned fund balance to provide resources. So resources is absolutely a short-term solution. This is just one of the first times that I've heard, if we had, you know, I thought it was just a matter of we weren't hiring because we were hiring people based on budget vacancy savings that we planned for. But if the immediate need is more staffing, this is something that I think the council would be very receptive to considering the unassigned fund balance for.
Well, and I would say to that too, like, I didn't know that there was some other fund balance available, so that wasn't, you know, something I knew about, but I would also say it's not just about the staffing in a way, because like, it's not, I'm not limiting myself. Certainly I was for a moment until a few weeks ago that Sean clarified some things for me, and we were like, then we're gonna hire all 3 of these positions, because we were worried about the budget numbers. But it's, even if I have full staffing for the FTEs I'm provided, like, I need more FTEs. And that, if that has to be extra part-timers, which I'm not really excited about, having more part-timers thrown into the mix, because that feels like a Band-Aid, not a true solution. You know, that's fine, but I still, it's also about, if we fill all the positions we currently have available, we still don't have enough people to put across the week for it to really feel like we have a complete, full, robust staff each day we're here. And
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And again, kind of not really having understood that previously, again, I think that this library board, I would love to hear from them. And I would love to hear if they would be, you know, open to making a recommendation for additional staffing resources based on additional, you know, staffing
Yeah.
analysis.
Yeah.
What do we need to do?
Make a recommendation to city council for additional funds.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
what do we do?
I think that, the biggest concern, I think back to a year ago when we were being begged to close services in library because there were 4 healthy individuals who were working. And COVID is not the same, but there are respiratory bugs going wild. And if we get into that situation again, then we're in another emergency situation. It's not fair to anyone in this library staff or anyone in this community. And
So do we need to make
Yeah.
some formal thing, Sean?
Well, typically, you know, staff provides boards and commissions with an analysis. This is similar to what police did when they made their case for additional police staffing. They put together a plan, backed up with data, presented to city council. In the library's case, the council would say, we want the library board to make a recommendation, but staff would typically provide, you know, the options, what this would cost, what that would cost, and the library board would ultimately decide what the recommendation was.
So Sean, if we put something, the staff put something together and we present it to the library board in December, would that then go to council in January?
Yes, and we could incorporate, if council saw fit to, you know, use some of the unassigned fund balance or the carryover that we know we're going to end 2022 with carryover funds, they saw fit to put that towards that, then yes, we could actually do that as the first budget amendment of the year in January.
Okay.
So is there still a possibility of kind of thinking about some of the short-term solutions until we are back at a full staffing level?
We almost,
For me, because I'm open to that. I just ask that we have the library board provide a recommendation. His council was very concerned last time that when staff kind of unilaterally decided to close. So I would like to get some feedback. That's why I kind of continue asking for library board feedback so that we can tell the council, the library board has discussed it. They want to keep it open, or they want this temporary closure while we put together a staffing plan.
That would be my recommendation. I would recommend closing on Sundays at the very least, if not considering. maybe
I,
not power off the top or bottom, just,
I would think. Because, I mean, people have to work.
Well, that was the other part of the recommendation I was making, if we were, and we could even do this without going to a 6-day week, would be to, instead of being 9:30 to 7:30, Monday through Thursday, being open 10 to 7, and then Fridays and Saturdays 10 to 7. And if we had any additional.
10 to 5.
Sorry, 10 to 5, sorry, thank you. The thing that would do to have that half hour later and the half hour earlier on the long days is it would allow us to restructure the way we staff the service desks to have only 3 segments instead of 4 segments, which makes it a lot trickier with the staff schedules to make it work. So certainly going to a 10 to 7 Monday through Thursday, 10 to 5 Friday, Saturday. And if we were able to assign additional FTEs to the library so we could have literally more bodies on staff, that we could more fully staff Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Because that's another problem with the rotation for Saturday and Sundays. We lose people on Fridays a lot, and we end up having 2 associates on Friday.
Wait, I think
Yeah.
a couple people virtually wanted to speak.
I would, can I say something?
Yes.
I don't have a signal here for raising my hand. Can you hear me?
No, we hear you.
No, we do.
We hear you.
Okay. All right. There is a lot of data that you've provided, and that I think that's very helpful, and it will be helpful down the road. But what we're missing is an action plan. And we need a short-term one and a long-term one. And I'm not prepared to say this is what the plan ought to be. I would default completely to your expertise about what that plan should be. And so I'm recommending that you put together a long and a short-term plan for dealing with these issues.
I was gonna say, if right now you need us to do something beyond closings. Like, can we change, doesn't seem like we're changing the hours till then. To the 10 to 7.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to like recommend changing hours like immediately,
Yeah.
because I think that's too disruptive and that doesn't make sense. But I mean, the immediate need to close on Sundays would give us a good reprieve. We still would be pretty tightly staffed for Friday, Saturdays a little bit, and really in Mondays and
yeah.
Tuesday nights until we get these new positions hired, because we are short those 3 associates. So it would certainly help.
Yeah.
We still are stretched really thin. I am very hard pressed for time to sit down and develop a coherent plan, because I do spend anywhere 7.5 to 15 hours a week on the service desk. And it is very difficult to complete any work on the service desk of any quality because you are interrupted every 5 minutes by a patron. But that's what the job is. When you're on the service desk, you are there to help people. So that's my other real issue that is very important to me is I don't feel like I'm doing my job as well as I could because I have to be there to support the staff on the floor.
I think that we all just want to know, what do you need right now?
I need to be closed on Sundays for sure. For sure, for the rest of the year, because we are so short the rest of the year.
Yeah, that's fine. Well, anything beyond that?
I mean, I would like to be able to have the time to discuss more fully what my recommendation for an operational week is. I understand that we, as a public library, we want to provide as much service as we can to the community. But if we're just merely keeping the doors open and not being able to have the time to create a solid plan and, you know, things that we're going to work towards, what is the point? We're just keeping the doors open and people are coming in and out and we're just responding. It's the planning and acting. And I don't know how to get there because I'm stuck. Yeah.
Well, that's the chicken or the egg issue. You really have to make a decision about what you're going to do and then get it done. And if things have to go by the wayside, they have to go by the wayside. But you have to do a
And that's one of
plan.
my, that's my thing is that if we can't scale back the service hours while we can create an actual plan, because I've been trying to talk for months with the library supervisors about a new action plan for 2023. That has gotten nowhere.
Then that
It has
is
gotten
your
nowhere.
short-term plan. Your short-term plan is scaling back your hours. So that you
Well, and I
can,
mean-
that's part of the short-term plan, so that you can do the long-term plan. You need two things and you need action. So, but we can't act on anything unless we have something in front of us that says what are the budget implications of it, what, et cetera. I don't know how we can act on anything unless we have something in front of us to do that.
And well, and that's what I'm trying to work on presenting is this my recommendation of scaling back the service hours so that I can better utilize the staff that we have. And even if we're saying we're going to add staff, to Carrie's point earlier, how long is that going to take to put into place? Like we're already in the process of trying to add 3 additional associates and a part-time security person.
I know, it's tough out there.
And so, you know, and part of the plan that I have for going to a 6-day work week, scaling back the service hours a little bit and utilizing 11 library associates, 5 supervisors, 2 people in technical services, still providing some support to the service desk. And then the security professionals, the part-time security, if we close on Sunday, they would do a Friday, Saturday, all day, and then they would provide associate support on a Tuesday night where we're short. So,
So you do have
I
a
do, but,
proposal for a
do.
long-term plan that could be presented.
Is that long-term
What
or
if we
short-term?
close the Saturday and Thanksgiving? If the library is closed Thursday, Friday, Sunday, closed to patrons on Saturday, and if you- like you were planning on working, right? Like
technically, no. but-
I was
Okay,
planning.
That's not
I
what I'm
was
saying,
planning
like,
on
take a day, you close to patrons or staff development. Okay, like, take a day and close and it be a work day. I think that you don't have a problem taking that. to each day.
I mean, a
Well, right?
recommendation that y'all could make
Yeah.
that could be helpful is kind of what you're saying, even if it were Saturday or another weekday.
Right, and
That even just for the remaining of the calendar year, so where it's just a staff work day.
Yeah.
So that, like, for instance, like Beth's saying, because she works every Saturday, automatically 1/5 of her weekly schedule is spent sitting at the
Yeah.
desk. So if we were closed on Saturday or closed on another day of the week
Right.
where staff could still work, then a lot of this prep work that everybody's talking about
you
could
think it's
happen.
valuable. So, whatever, I think that that is essential right now. And if you could do that prior to our next meeting and then come with clear recommendations for us for the start of the calendar year.
Mhm.
Take 2 days, like, I think that
I mean, honestly, I feel like I have a clear plan. I just don't know how to clearly present it. Because I don't know the best way to demonstrate or write it out or give it. I don't know how to deliver it. Let's make a meeting. Because that's where I think I'm stuck, is I don't know how to deliver the plan that I have been literally working on for weeks.
Let's do this. Let's decide short term.
Yeah.
You guys can make a motion and vote on that. And then for December meeting, we'll all work together and come up with bullets. This is what we're proposing, A, B, and C, and then we can work through each option and explain it more and answer questions, and then you can make a motion at that point to pick as a board.
Yeah.
Then that's what will be going to council come January
Yeah.
to make change for 2023, so we can get back on our feet.
Is there something intrinsically better about being open 10 to 7?
It's the half hour is weird. Frankly, starting and ending on a half hour is just really awkward.
Yeah.
First, particularly for staffing, for figuring out the staffing schedule, it's just a little awkward to do. And the biggest reason for wanting to start a half hour later too is currently this associates start at 9 a.m. and currently we open at 9:30. There's a lot of preparation that has to happen before opening that does not get finished in 30 minutes. And so after opening, the associates are still trying to pull materials to fulfill holds, checking in the book drop, and then processing the courier bins that we receive in the morning. If we could have an hour to do that preparation in the morning, that would go a long way. I don't think we need an hour and a half, and then we would be pushing everybody's schedule back. If we open at 10:30.
Story times have been.
And I was just
for
gonna say,
years.
Kimberly would probably
Yeah.
just knock me out if I told her we're opening at 10:30, the story time starts at 10:30. So that's the other consideration, is one of the largest program draws, 5 days a week, story time at 10:30. If we were to disrupt that, that would be a real problem, because families, and I know this as a children's librarian myself, story time is a very precarious thing to try to schedule, and when you find a time that works, stick with it, because families plan their nap times around it, their meal times around it. And frankly, the programs that bring people in the library are the children's programs. And I don't really want to mess with that formula.
Are you still tracking by hour, or in the library? I think that data could be helpful.
Yeah, it's the hourly in-house count. We only started that in October. And I've been trying to figure out how to integrate it into the statistics where it kind of makes sense. And I have to be honest, on Saturdays and Sundays, it's a little inconsistent with the collection because it falls on the supervisors to do it. But we're also trying to be on the desk. Because during the week, it's the security specialist who does it. And that's part of their work and their duty as the security specialist. But it definitely is interesting information to see for sure. I'm trying to figure out how to.
Because right now it's just pages and pages of numbers. And so trying to think of a good way to
And
present
it doesn't make sense to try to total it because the point is to see it hour by hour. And I don't really have a great way to.
Like it might be
visually
line
show that.
graphs might be helpful, I guess, to see the ebb and flow of each day, but then you're still having to do day by day by day. So you're still having to flip through lots of.
Knowing which hours, the average amount of people, and so if there's a growth.
It's like a monthly average with the day hours.
Per day of the week,
For
like
the
Sunday.
Per hour.
Yeah.
To know, if there's gonna be a conversation about these hours, having the data about how people are.
And I will say, that was one of the things Carrie and I looked at with like that first half hour time frame. When we look at the door count data, it's usually pretty small. Maybe it might be like 15, which is like 7 people, and so we really don't start having anything more than like 10 to 15 people until after 10 a.m. Except for yesterday, there was like 30 people waiting to get in.
I would definitely be more on board if I felt like this was a temporary thing to get through a hard time.
I think it's temporary in the sense of the temporary time period will take a couple of years. It's not a couple of months. This is something that we have to probably do for at least a year, as Gary suggested, and we can use 2023 to try to make some changes in other plans to reinstate on any hours in 2024. But it might even take longer. I know that recently the Aurora Public Library reinstated their service hours. They have only been open, I want to say 47 hours a week at all of their locations, but they just recently were able to put forth a couple of years worth of work into a new model where they reintroduced hours that had been cut back a while. So, and, you know, and
I think it would be too.
this is just another thing I want to point out too about libraries. Denver Public Library is open most of their branches 5 days a week, some 6. They don't have a single branch open for more than 47 hours a week currently. Yes, they just passed a multi-year $36 million mill levy to help them increase their staffing and renovate their buildings. But we can't be a substitute for the closures of these other big libraries. And we are offering way more hours than a lot of these other big systems that we can't compete with staffing and budget. And we have to be realistic about the size of our community, the size of our staff, the size of our budget, and our service hours need to be in balance with that. We really have to think about it in that way. We can't offer the same thing as Bemis Library with half the resources. And great, we can throw some more staff in there, but that still doesn't mean that we're getting all the way up to that same level. We'll only add 2 FTEs at most. It's not really solving the problem. Like I said, I just feel like it's sort of a Band-Aid. And we really need time to
And
regroup.
Beth, I think you've done a really masterful job of painting the picture. I think it's really well said. Let's pause to let the commission give a recommendation that we can then take to council.
I have something, am I allowed to make a motion? Yes,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I think we need to move on from this tonight. That's been given us so much information. My recommendation would be to immediately close Sundays through the new year. And I would recommend that you schedule a staff work day or 2 in this time frame to catch up and get the jobs that you need to get done. I think that the city can make do with some notice. And I would also like for you to come to the next meeting with a recommendation or a couple ideas to get to us for how we proceed in the new year.
Got it.
That was the motion.
This is through the end of the year.
Yes, through the, yeah.
I'll say.
All in favor?
Hi.
I,
Edie, you're muted.
Raise your hand. Can you raise your hand, Edie?
Edie, your sound's out. We can see her talking, but we can't hear you. Amy, can you say something?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
It's on.
Yeah, we're still not able to hear you, Edie.
All right. I think we need to pass that motion and move on for tonight.
Sure.
And Edie, if you have something you would like to add, please feel free to email. I think?
Yeah.
Okay. So we need to get to this public comment.
Oh, gosh, I totally forgot.
Yes.
Okay, the thing, and I forgot to integrate this into the whole thing, because like one of the points that this person is
See,
really truly trying to make is that she doesn't feel like the program is properly promoted, that there's not a lot of attendance, and we've talked in past meetings about the lack of attendance at adult programs, but again, it all is intertwined, that it falls back on the staff availability to pursue additional promotions and send, things out. The Facebook and Instagram pages have taken a huge hit because we don't have anybody to spend the time on doing that. And I don't even have time to spend working with another person in the city to make a plan for it. And I know Maggie has offered to help us and we just haven't had the opportunity to take up that offer.
Well, you have,
I'd like to know too. I went back and looked at Facebook specifically, I'd like to do this. wanted to see like, they were what had promoted and wanted to look like. And Books at the Bar and Novels at Night have been promoted exactly the same way for at least the last 6 months. So while I don't want to dismiss her experience whatsoever, I'm wondering if there's like something else that is causing the low.
Well,
attendance.
and the other thing to note about Novels at Night is that the same group of people that attend Novels at Night also attend Sack Lunch Saga, which is a third book club that takes
It's a day.
place at noon on a Wednesday once a month. So we really do have two book clubs with the same attendance at both sessions.
Except for,
Except
one.
for Brenda Hupka does not attend Sack Lunch Saga. She only attends Novels at Night, and the other Novels at Night participants attend Sack Lunch Saga. I think that there was also some bit of a misrepresentation on her part regarding what this end of the year thing is about. My understanding from some of the Books at the Bar people was it was a celebration for the people participating in the book club, making plans for selecting books for the next year. And there's been some, the way that the books were selected last year for 2022, there was a lot of overlap between Novels at Night and Books at the Bar in terms of selection. And several of the Books at the Bar participants had indicated that they would like to have separate kind of voting, if you will, for titles. And, you know, some of the stuff that she brings up about using Nextdoor and Facebook and, you know, referencing a lot of things with Michelle, like, I mean, we don't know anything about that stuff. That was not anything that Michelle pushed forward to the staff for us to carry on. And for many months, there were no staff leading any of the book club discussions except for Books at the Bar because it happens off-site. And we would provide discussion questions for Sack Lunch Saga and Novels at Night. Once Corinne got started in her new position, she started taking over all three book clubs, which is really not feasible for one staff member to run 3 different book clubs because you're expected to read the book, be part of the discussion. That's a lot to ask for one person to run 3 book clubs, read 3 different books. And I think that there's part of her criticism is very legitimate, but it goes to the fact that the staff do not have time to address some of the concerns she's bringing up. And we don't know what else to do about that. And so like, in order to be able to address these things and feel like we're properly promoting all of our programming, this goes back to the whole other thing about the staffing that we have to take care of. And I think, you know, definitely Novels at Night was kind of one of the primary things that was on the chopping block for cutting a program because it has the least attendance of all of the book clubs. And it requires, you know, Corinne to come in to facilitate on a day that it's not even scheduled to work. And I'm really trying to figure out how to manage the staffing there. So I don't have the full-time staff working for, you know, 50 to 60 hours a week. Because that is happening and I'm really trying to discourage that.
You guys have questions on this?
You know, I have a question. I'm sure on page 2 where it said community development, I'm sure it meant
Communication.
Yeah.
Is there an issue between library staff and communication staff?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't know. I don't know. I think there may have been a misunderstanding or miscommunication on this point because historically, my understanding is that the library has wanted to manage its own social media and it has been trying to do that. But we're at a point where I've had frank conversations with the supervisors about the social media and how we really, like, we either need to get a plan together or we need to drop it because this is not something we can do effectively and it doesn't help to be out there. And so there is a separate Facebook page for the entire department, Parks, Rec, Library, and Golf, that does have, is she part of communications? Is she part of our department, Julie Hammond?
She's going to communications.
So she's gonna be part of communications, but like, that's somebody that we could work with to feed our, like, information to go out into social media.
We just had staff that is willing and wanting to do it, so we've allowed them to do it, to keep them motivated, but with the turnover of staff, it's probably the right time
Yeah.
to talk to communications to see if they can pick up and at least get us going in a different direction for a bit of time.
And I think that's something that certainly is very much on the table to kind of turn that over to another department that has the time and the skill frankly to do it and develop a method where we can give them the details and say, hey, time this, put it out, whatever.
Wonder if that would help.
Oh, no.
I just wonder if that would be helpful.
Yeah. I mean, and that's certainly been something that has been on my mind to make a change with the social media because if we're not able to manage it ourselves, and I think many libraries do their own in-house social media, which would be great. But we have to, again, be realistic about the resources that we have and use them smartly. And if that means utilizing the resources of another department, then we need to do that. And those are the kinds of things I'm trying to figure out. How do we get that done?
So with this directly, like, is it required that a book club that is like held, or a program held through the library has to have a staff member, like, could this person say, I'm gonna volunteer to take this over, and the library still promote that, like, community-led book clubs exist, and that will happen with the French club?
French club has been disbanded. It is no longer held or sponsored by the library.
Okay, but they still meet.
Maybe.
We don't, it's totally separate from the library.
Yeah, it just kind of left with flow. So, I mean, and that's the thing, we could potentially figure out a way to say, so for example, Life, the Universe and Everything, they are not library employees or anything like that, but they host an event here. We put it on our calendar.
Yeah.
We put it in, I think we put it in the Citizen. And it's on our online calendar and our printed calendar, and we have flyers throughout the library.
Right. Is
Rest,
that,
rest of the promotion, that's the exact amount of promotion we would do for novels at night.
Yeah,
Can we offer that
resident.
as an option? Because I think that she's an involved community member. She understands, she would very easily understand the, like, stress that you're under. And I think that if someone with, like, kindness said this to her, please take the lead if you want to
Well,
make
and
it happen.
Lorraine-
We are happy to support you.
Tried, at this meeting last Thursday.
Yeah.
Tried to offer this woman to speak to me so we
Yeah.
could talk about it. I was even here Thursday
Right.
night. She had no interest in doing so, did not want to speak with me, didn't feel like that would solve any problems.
I think that if that offer is made and then if that's not
So-
accepted, then that's it.
That's
Would
kind of,
be
I mean, that's kind of what we were thinking about, is that we would sit, I was talking with Debbie that I will follow up with her after tonight's meeting. And that was basically what we were gonna say, is like, if you would like to take the lead on this book club, so to ensure that it continues on Thursday evenings, we welcome you to do that. We offer you the space. We would put you on our promotions.
Yeah.
But there's a limit to the promotions where, any additional promoting she needs to do herself, that we will include online calendar, printed calendar, Inglewood Citizen. And that's the extent of what we're able to do right now. And if she wants to do the rest herself, and we can still call it a library book club, that's fine. But,
I think that also opens it up to, like, potential other groups. Sorry,
And
if that's a thing, then great.
right, because we do have other groups that come here to present programs. We kind of co-sponsor it with them.
Yeah.
They get to use the space for free and have their event or their presentation.
Yeah.
And that's what we do. And so I think that's an option for a book club if she wanted it. And if she said, I want to take this book club and take it somewhere else, then that's fine too. Because we are at the limit with what we can do to grow
And then
currently.
there would also be a possibility of getting,
Yeah, I mean, that would be, again, a down the road, but yeah, will take time to do, but
that's getting a pretty good side of the park. I remember that, I would have one.
Is there clarity on, if like her experiences? Coaching with the staff.
so I wasn't in the room for the interaction. Another participant in the book club did email our staff member afterwards and said that she really enjoys the book clubs. And I hope you're not discouraged after the remarks about PR and getting the info out to increase attendance, which occurred last Thursday night. You handled it really well. Because to be frank, the patron was very, just accusatory, cursing, very angry, disrupted the actual discussion to address these concerns. Didn't wait till the meeting was over, didn't address it beforehand, had no interest in speaking to the library manager. So to a certain degree, I am concerned about how this kind of went down, because I feel like we could have had a different type of discussion. And I could have followed up with it more quickly.
Yeah.
Because this came Monday, and I mean, Corinne had told me that she's like, I just felt totally blindsided by this. But, you know, so I just feel like there's a right way to do things. And to just go from badgering the staff member, skipping the manager altogether and addressing the board, like, that's fine, that's a way to do it. But I probably could have addressed it more directly sooner. So. I mean, I don't think so. I don't know what kind of decision you would want to make. I don't think there is one to be made. I just wanted to share it because I wanted to be true to a public comment coming in. I didn't want to try to bury it or hide it. But this was somebody's concern and they feel very passionately about that. That's great, but I do feel like it is a little bit misguided. It was a little bit unfair in the way it was presented to the staff.
Well, then I would say take my recommendation as you
Yeah. Which I think that was sort of the plan, when
Yeah.
you say, we're gonna cut this all together unless you would like to take a lead a second.
All right, that was a lot of new business. Is there anything else? Okay. Is there anything else for staff stories?
I'm just gonna add something fun, that's really fun.
Yeah.
Holiday Express is coming up, almost sold out, literally.
My God.
If you haven't,
It was the time frame that we wanted.
yeah, all the time, it was weird, everything's sold out. 6:30 is really all that's left on most of the days. So
Maybe add cars to the train.
we're trying, to keep you updated on that.
Good.
But it won't be here for holiday. So if you haven't got tickets, there are some left. I think December 16th at 6:30 has the most tickets left, like 20, that's it. So get your tickets now. And then holiday tree lighting is happening Saturday, December 3rd out here. It's also the same night as the downtown, in Denver, their parade, but ours is ending, it's 2 to 6. I think we'll light the tree at like 4:30 or 5 since it's dark, so you have plenty of time to get downtown. We've heard a few complaints, but like, hey, there's a lot going on. It's a busy time.
Will
of
there be
year.
entertainment this year?
Of course, I'll be singing karaoke. Yeah, we have, I think the high school choir, and maybe band is coming.
Oh.
Yeah, I think they're both coming, so it should be nice. And the market's also happening.
There was like an acrobat a couple of years ago.
Whoa.
That my granddaughter.
We won't have an acrobat, but feel free to bring your
Our commission is having an interactive.
Yes.
Character.
prepared shirt.
Oh.
Yeah, it'll be pretty cool. So the guild just right next door here is gonna be open. They're gonna have some stuff going on, which will be nice to get out of the cold and all that. And then the market's also going on, so get to do some holiday shopping as well. That's all.
Board members' choice, city council.
So if you guys are interested in the code next process, we're having this conversation going on the speaker level. And two, I'll have a couple more,
And all the referendums. Is that correct?
everything passed. I mean, we haven't certified the results and I haven't done Reddit. But yes, it looks like everything passed, which is, good news for the city and very humbling for city council. I'm really glad, a lot of gratitude that there is trust in the city government to steward the resources well. And there were changes to the charter, and so
Were the Inglewood votes higher than in years past, or at least in a midterm?
for the turnout, I don't know, that's a good question. I should look that up.
Yeah, I don't know if they've announced that yet. Usually it's,
Just like the Secretary of State side, I turned out for votes counted so far.
yeah. pretty
I
good.
haven't seen the Eagle specific. Oh, that's a good question.
I'm bummed that we'll never have an ear report.
Never
I'm not your referendum.
That would have been nice.
Alas,
Yeah, so
alas.
far.
Yeah, that's why they never want questions I got. I'm not thinking about, like, what are we getting here?
I was glad to see public library board on the referendum.
You're not
Special, yeah. Yeah.
Helps you get a quorum, much easier.
There we go. All right, well, does anyone else? add?
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yes.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving.
It is 8:40.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
Yeah, available. Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah.